You know, they're not gonna... Yeah. Oh, what the fuck? I know, but I have to explain. This is the second time. They're starting to wonder whether, you know, you exist. Oh, you do? Now that's not a good thing. Could someone plug that in for me, please? Oh, so lovely. Oh, sorry, Swami, that was just a technical problem up at this end. Okay, well, I'm going to do my best. Okay, you take care out there. Oh, I can't believe what you're dealing with. Okay. Okay, I'll try and explain. Bye, Swami. Bye now. Oh, God. I know. It's you see, you might have guessed by now, SWAMI cannot be with us tonight. Yeah, you see, some girl over in another one of your groups, well, if she didn't lock herself into her room last night and all night long, made herself a paper mache egg, she's gone into it, won't come out. And you see, she forgot to fashion a beak tooth, which, if some of you know, is what you use to break out of the shell with. But there's no beak tooth in there with her, and tragically, no breathing holes either. So this morning she was near expiration when a local handyman had to be called in to drill a couple of holes and put some straws in there. So you might well ask, well, why don't they just bust their way into this thing? Well, you see, the rescue team believes it could be dangerous at this point to challenge her this way, and of course, psychologically speaking, probably better for her to break out of her own shell. Well, personally, I'd roll the thing off a steep cliff and be done with it, but I'm not in charge over there, am I? No. No. So SWAMI and the others have gently carried this giant, massive egg into the main hall of the meditation center. They've built a huge nest. They've broken up the furniture and took stuffing out of the couches. Well, they're chanting encouragement and they're playing bird calls, and well, they're, you know, doing really bad karaoke to Jonathan Livingston's Seagull. A 24-hour vigil's underway for her room. Well, just this morning, the group enlisted the aid of a local ornithologist who, well, he sculpted a beak tooth, and they've shoved that in through one of the holes. And, well, the question remains, does she have the strength and the will to use it? Will she recognize it for what it is, or will projection keep her from seeing reality? We have had an encouraging development this afternoon, however, because rescuers heard a faint cry emanating from within the egg. Turns out she's asking for lunch. She's requested organically grown tomatoes on gluten-free spelt bread with non-GMO vegan mayonnaise and pink Himalayan salt. Well, personally, I'd shove a few hot dog wieners in there and call it a day, but I'm not in charge over there, am I? But I am in charge here. And I guess I should be introducing myself. Hopefully this will work. Ah, yes. My name is Sheila May Holcomb, and I live up in Spuzzum, BC with my husband Frank, where we run Sheila May's General Store and Beauty Emporium. Yes, up at the Emporium we like to say live bait, fishing tackle, nails, and hair, motor oil, manicures, spray for bear. Now I can see some puzzled looks on some of your faces out there as to just what I am doing here. Well, you know, SWAMI put out a call, didn't she, to have someone come in her place, but as you know, she's dealing with that girl who's put the egg in existential. But it seems you must have had a bad phone connection, because I misunderstood clearly what she was looking for. You see, she said beatify, which I now understand is something to do with dead people getting into heaven. Well, I thought I heard beautify, and it was all downhill from there. She mentioned a diamond brooch and pearls and presents. Well, you can imagine how the misunderstanding could arise. I mean, who doesn't love jewelry and presents? Why, just last week, Frank gave me a full-length mink coat. And real meat too, none of that fake shit. Animal rights my foot. That mink wasn't using that coat. Besides, brown was all wrong on him. It looks better on me. Of course, there would have been more than one mink involved. Apparently it takes about 75 to make a coat, but you know, animals know the value of sacrifice for beauty, something which, as I look around the room, has been clearly lost on you girls. Yes. Looking around the room tonight, it's clear there's been no forfeiture made in this regard whatsoever, which is why I've decided to take up my missionary position to see what I can do about the sorry state of affairs here at the Diamond Brooch. Because if looks could kill, many of you would have been charged with first-degree murder and sent up to the big house by now. And speaking of incarceration, this so-called retreat center bears an eerie resemblance to a correction facility that Frank once did some time in. Well, you have to line up for food. Some days you're not allowed to talk. You have to sit perfectly still for hours on end, and some of you are forced to bunk in with others like sardines. Well, at least the fish are dead when they're packed. Then they lock you in at night and turn the lights out by 10 o'clock. I'm telling you, your social lives are being torn apart by these disastrous restrictions. Why, I was just out the other evening trolling the halls for some kind of action or company, and well, I couldn't detect any signs of life anywhere. And all I could hear through the closed doors was the sound of teeth being flossed and the occasional boost of consciousness. You know, you can sleep when you're dead. Well, then they expect you to be up at the back crack of dawn, don't they, for something called morning medication. Well, if there's medication being dispensed, it must be some kind of paralytic, because everyone just sits there, not moving. I wandered in the other morning and thought I'd stumbled onto the set of a sci-fi movie, like, for example, The Day They All Sat Still. Or zombies on retreat. And if all this isn't bad enough, you only have a teeny, weensy sink in your room. For heaven's sake, even axe murderers get a fucking toilet. Then there's the matter of the beds. I've seen maxi pads bigger than this. Are you all right, madam? How do you expect to get your beauty sleep under such primitive conditions? And if you're not getting your beauty sleep, how can you expect to attract men to this school of yours? Although calling it a school is a bit of a stretch, since apparently nobody ever graduates. You know, if you want to lure more men into the fold, you girls are going to have to start acting like the live bait God intended you to be. You know, there was a recruitment session a while ago. And this is how it went. The recruitment officer, a very good friend of mine, spent a very long afternoon and evening. Had to resort to reading a very salacious novel just to stay awake. been a few incentive plans to trap men, like this. And this one. But largely the results have been lackluster. Because it really all boils down to retention, doesn't it, girls? I mean, even if you get them in the door, what's going to keep them here? Why, just the other evening here at Santa Sabina, you know, I have been here for a few days. I've been incognito, but I wanted to just get the feel for the place. Anyway, I had a free workshop for you girls on how best to manage your sparse allotment of beauty assets, and I called it Allure, so much more than fishing tackle. But I have to say, I was very disappointed in the turnout. Apparently you're wholly unfamiliar with the concept of curb appeal. I know you're very big on non-doing here at the Diamond Brooch, but trust me, if God had wanted you to do nothing, he wouldn't have created cosmetic surgery and fashion and diets, now would he? Quite a number of you girls are single, and even worse, many of you are past your best before dates. Not a good combination. Why, if it weren't for the potluck, some of you girls might have no luck at all. I'm so concerned about this dire situation, I've composed a personal want ad that you might consider using. You know, I've noticed that around all over Santa Sabina are those dispensers for soap, right? And I'm thinking, couldn't we maybe swap the contents of those things for something a little more practical? Speaking of diminishing hormonal reserves, what is the fascination that so many of you have for straddling these giant rubber balls? I notice it's generally only the women who engage in this peculiar practice. Perhaps the men would find it too redundant. I know my Frank wouldn't be caught dead rolling around on one of those pastel spheres. In any case, I have a theory. Could it be that since most of your eggs have left the building, as it were, that you're unconsciously driven to sit on one of these orbs in the distant and faint hope that one of them might hatch? It's not as far-fetched as you might imagine. Frank and I had a cockatiel once, and we gave her a little wooden ball to play with, and wouldn't you know, a week later she had laid an egg. It's a cautionary tale, girls. I'm just saying, be careful what you wish for. Yes, you girls here seem to be the girls that time forgot. Which may explain why so many of you prefer to wear the sandals that time forgot. A sandal that announces to the world that where you're concerned, only comfort counts and you don't care who knows it. No, it's bad enough that Birkenstocks are preferred by 9 out of 10 lesbians, but really, the American Psychiatric Association has just declared the Birkenstock to be the official shoe of clinical depression. Is this really the kind of statement you wish to make? I mean, how can you put your best foot forward when it's encased in a barge? And you can't even give these things away, you know. There's only a few locations that will take them. I know your work here in the Diamond Brooch is focused on the interstates, but what do Kansas and Nebraska have to do with anything? I mean, how can you expect to look good on feel good on the inside when you look like something the cat dragged in and threw back out again? I mean, you might as well just announce to the world that you don't care what anybody thinks of you. And just who's all this inner embellishment for anyways? I mean, who's ever going to see it? Like it is not. Unless you're walking backwards, the first thing they're going to see is your face. And I have to say, it's not your strong suit. In fact, I've noticed a distinct pallor in the complexion of many of you, and it wasn't until I saw the list of your convoluted food preferences that it became perfectly clear that by the time you eliminate all the things you say you can't eat, there isn't enough food left on your plate to sustain life. No wonder the most you can manage is to sit around all day perfectly still with the odd tear thrown in. I'd be crying too if all I could eat were twigs and dried berries. I've met squirrels with more sophisticated palates. Why, you can't even muster the energy to come up with some new questions to ask each other. You just keep rotating the same ones over and over again. So where does this leave the kitchen staff here at Santa Sabina as they undertake every day the Herculean task of pleasing the greatest conglomerate of picky eaters in the history of Epicureanism? Well, let's just take a look, shall we, at a typical breakfast and see how well they would fare serving it to you. Looks innocent enough, doesn't it? Then we start to see the problems. First to go is that fruit juice. The berries were not organically grown. And then there's the caffeine problem, way too stimulating. Of course, dairy is impossible, but with the lactose intolerance and flatulence. And yeah, sodium has to go, bad for blood pressure. The first ingredient on the jam was sugar, and you know what that can do. Then there's the toast with its twin evils of gluten and wheat. Nightshades could trigger your arthritis, and meat's completely out, and that apple was covered in pesticides. And, well, you didn't know personally the hen that laid those eggs. No wonder I found the kitchen manager trying to drown herself in the inner courtyard. Well, I've been giving this whole dismal affair some serious thought, and I think I may have come up with an idea that just might kill two birds with one stone. Those two birds being your lack of culinary imagination and the dearth of Y chromosomes here in the diamond brooch. So what if you took the few men you've been able to capture and turned them loose some evening so they could forage about the campus to hunt and gather food? Just think what it could mean to them to bag a California ground squirrel. Or perhaps a dusky-footed wood rat. Of course, to feed 65, they'd have to catch around 700 of the small mammals, and I feel you girls could starve to death waiting for dinner. But still, just imagine the swell and manly pride that might follow a rugged pursuit of this nature. Why, there'd be such a surge in testosterone, you girls might just have to lock your doors. Now, I want to turn my attention to the matter of the diamond brooch literature. Because with titles like The Point of Existence, Transformation of Narcissism and Self-Realization, Essence with the Elixir of Enlightenment, and The Pearl Beyond Price, Integration of Personality into Being an Object Relations Approach, really, I have to say they're not exactly pot-boiling page-turners, are they? Why, I tried to read one the other night, and I almost lapsed into a coma. I'd have to be hooked up to an amphetamine drip to get through one of those things. I mean, how does this school expect to teach its students when the reading materials are so dreary? Well, I've given this problem some considerable thought, as you might expect I would. And I've come up with some titles that I think would turn the whole problem around. So let's take a look together, shall we, at some possible books. Bejeweling Your Personal Essence, Putting the Diamonds Back in the Diamond Brooch. I'm okay, you're projecting. Oh, I'm away from home, pocket rituals for the road. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, how I survived my 8-day DHS. How about this one, The Who's Who of Who? The definitive guide to important people in the diamond brooch. The houndless dimensions, I'm not going there if there are no dogs. ORs, scars in the OR, the role of surgery in the removal of psychic structure. Guide to buying a used diamond vehicle, don't get stuck with a lemon. And finally, one that I'm certain is going to prove to be a blockbuster. The diamond approach to better sex, turning your calf point into a G-spot. I thought you might like that one. Well, you know, I can't believe it, but our time has come to an end. I know. But you have a party to get to, don't you? I can only hope that my efforts here will serve to bring you diamond girls back from the brink of beauty extinction, and that you will commit to your outer life half as much as you do to the inner, which, as I've already said, no one's ever going to see, so why bother? After all, what's the point of the trip if you look like a train wreck upon arrival? So, I want you to keep the faith in my absence, and remember, even if the old identity depot won't take yours, and you've been ticketed by the Highway Patrol for negative merging, if the last time your husband had any optimizing thrust Nixon was in office, and even your vacuum has been diagnosed with attachment disorder, if your local narcissistic outfitter doesn't have what you want, and you came across the fabric of your consciousness at Target for $2 a yard, if your idealizations are breaking down more often than a Ford Pinto, I have to give you a bit of time on that one. I know your eyes are going and it's hard to read that. And consciousness might even be a sinking ship for you. Even if your insights seem to come at irregular intervals, remember, even gurus sometimes have difficulty attaining spiritual liftoff. So take your medicine, push the beds together some night, and really get to know your roommate all over again. And wear your diamond brooches like the royalty that you are. I understand that there's going to be an auction. I did get SWAMI to sign this poster. Where are my auctioneers? Brian and Elvis slash, and they're going to auction off tonight for the student fund.
The signed copy.
Right, there's only one original, so I expect it's to be quite high, but we'll start the bidding at 200. That's luck. 200. 150. $1. No, what would you start the bidding at?
$5.
I'm bidding $100. I'm bidding $100. Yeah. Who else wants to bid on this poster?
150.
150. Okay. Do we have anybody else? 200.